Some cases end with a gunshot, others end with a courtroom cheer. But the ones that truly ruin you, they end with a smile and a photo, one that was never supposed to exist. Detective Daniel Raines thought the Emily Carter case was behind him. He'd solved it, wrapped it in paperwork, confessions, and tears. He'd watched her parents cry in relief when Carl Denning was arrested. He buried the doubt. He forced himself to believe justice had been served. But that changed with one flick of a magazine page. It was a rainy Thursday when Daniel saw her. Not in a morgue photo, not in a case file, but standing barefoot on a beach in Ecuador, laughing under the sun, just behind a group of tourists posing for a travel brochure. He stared at the image, his coffee growing cold. Same green eyes, same birthmark below her ear. No way this was coincidence. Emily Carter, dead for 20 years, was very much alive. Daniel's pulse pounded. If this was real, then Carl Denning, the man serving life for her murder, was innocent. And Daniel, he hadn't solved anything. He'd buried the truth and let a lie take its place. Haunted by guilt and driven by the kind of obsession only regret can feed, Daniel dusted off the boxes he swore he'd never open again. Because if Emily had never died, who was buried in her name? Why did Carl confess? And who exactly was the real monster hiding in plain sight? This wasn't just a case reopening. It was everything Daniel thought he knew, coming undone. Daniel stared at the photograph for what felt like hours. His coffee had long gone cold, and the clinking of dishes around the diner faded into a low hum. The waitress came by, offered a refill, and asked if everything was okay. He just nodded, eyes locked on the magazine. Then, as if he were holding a piece of classified intelligence, he slid it under his arm, tossed some cash on the table, and left. In the quiet of his truck, rain tapping gently on the windshield, he opened the magazine again. His hands shook. The woman in the background of the travel photo wasn't just a look-alike. She was Emily Carter, that faint scar on her brow, the slight curl in her smile. Daniel had studied her face for years, on flyers, in evidence folders, in his dreams. You don't forget the face of someone whose death you confirmed. That night, sleep was a stranger. He lay in bed, mind racing, retracing the steps that led to Carl Denning's conviction. The confession, the locket found behind Carl's trailer, the matching footprints. But even back then, something had felt off, rushed, disjointed. Carl's confession had come after hours of pressure. He'd always seemed confused, haunted. The next morning, Daniel drove 2 hours to see Mara Reyes, the forensic tech who had worked the original case. Retired now but sharp as ever, Mara listened quietly as Daniel laid it out. When he showed her the photo, she took off her glasses and squinted. "You sure?" she asked. "Positive," Daniel said. "I'd bet everything." They combed through the magazine credits. The image was part of a feature on coastal towns in Ecuador. The woman was listed as Emma Lake, volunteer coordinator. A new name, but the same face. Mara pulled up the blog, traced the photographer, and within hours they had an email address in a rough location. "I shouldn't be doing this," Mara said, typing furiously. "But if that's Emily Carter, then we buried the wrong truth." Daniel booked a flight immediately. He told no one. Not his old precinct, not Emily's family, not even his daughter. He needed to see it with his own eyes. Ecuador was chaotic and humid, buzzing with noise and life. Daniel arrived at the nonprofit's village compound. A young man met him at the gate. "You here to volunteer?" he asked. Daniel shook his head. "I'm looking for Emma Lake." "She works mornings at the school," the man replied. "Come back tomorrow." That night, in a small motel room with a flickering ceiling fan and peeling paint, Daniel reviewed his plan, though he didn't really have one, just instinct. The next morning, he waited outside the school. Children trickled out, followed by staff, and then her, a little older, hair darker, but it was her, laughing, alive, unaware of the storm behind Daniel's eyes. He followed, careful, uncertain. Finally, he stepped forward and said her real name. "Emily?" She froze, blood draining from her face. "Who are you?" she asked, voice trembling. "My name is Daniel Raines," he said quietly. "I worked your case. You were declared dead in 2015. A man went to prison for your murder. After Carl's release, the town was torn. Some hailed Daniel as a hero, others saw him as a traitor. But Daniel didn't care. Carl was free, and Emily's truth had been uncovered. Still, one question burned. Who framed Carl? Digging into Russell Green's past, Daniel uncovered a trail of corruption. Russell's sudden retirement, shady finances, and links to a long-dead crime syndicate painted a chilling picture. Emily's case had just been one piece in a much larger web. Forced confessions, planted evidence. Russell had manipulated it all, covering up years of dirty deals. The rot ran deep, touching law enforcement, lawyers, even the district attorney's office. With help from Mara, Daniel traced the money trail, unearthing connections to illegal land grabs and organized crime. Russell hadn't acted alone. This was a network, and Daniel had unknowingly been a pawn in it. They agreed to meet at a quiet diner. But when Daniel arrived, the place was empty. Too empty. A warning text from Mara hit his phone. Don't trust anyone. Russell knows. They're coming. Seconds later, two men entered. Silent, dead-eyed. One grabbed Daniel. The other flashed photos of Mara, taken just hours earlier. Then Mara burst in, clutching a thick file of damning evidence. Documents tying Russell and the DA's office to years of corruption. While the men turned, Daniel acted, knocking them off balance, grabbing the file, and fleeing with Mara into the night. Breathless in the parking lot, they knew what they had: the truth. Enough to bring the entire system down. As they drove away, the weight of it all hit Daniel. This wasn't just about justice, it was redemption. For Carl, for Emily, and for himself. Even if it meant burning down everything he once believed in. The months after the truth came out were a blur for Daniel. The files Mara had given him, stacked with undeniable proof of corruption, sparked investigations that shook the entire department. High-ranking officers, including Russell Green, were arrested. The district attorney's office, once respected, was exposed for its role in the cover-up. The fallout was bigger than anyone had imagined. But even as justice was served, Daniel felt a strange emptiness. Yes, Carl Denning had been exonerated, and Emily's real killer had been brought to light. But the emotional scars ran deep. Years of betrayal and lies couldn't be undone overnight. Every conversation, every sidelong glance from his peers reminded him how alone he had felt chasing the truth. Carl was free now, but prison had stolen more than his time. His old life was gone, and the dream of peace felt far away. Still, Daniel stayed in touch, offering whatever support he could. Carl never talked about the past, just focused on rebuilding. And though Daniel couldn't shake the guilt, he was relieved Carl had a second chance. Mara's life changed too. After risking everything to help Daniel, she was placed under witness protection. They said goodbye knowing they might never meet again. She had sacrificed her safety to do what was right, and Daniel would always respect her for that. Emily remained in Daniel's thoughts. Her locket was returned to her family, but there was no comfort in it. She was gone, and her story had nearly been buried forever. Daniel often wondered if he'd ever truly forgive himself. Now he worked as a quiet consultant for the department, helping younger detectives navigate the lingering shadows of corruption. There were no headlines, no praise, just the steady work of trying to make things better. One day, Carl called him out of the blue. His voice was calm but emotional. He thanked Daniel for everything, for giving him his life back. That call stayed with Daniel. It reminded him that the fight had meant something. Even if the past couldn't be fixed, the future could be protected. Justice wasn't always loud. Sometimes it lived in quiet moments, in difficult choices, and the courage to keep going. If this story moved you, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Join us for more powerful tales about justice, redemption, and the choices that shape us. Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts.